So what would be the main difference between this neural marketing versus just normal marketing? And why does one need to focus more on the neural side?
Well, that's a really, really good question, because there is a distinction, and this is not eliminating traditional marketing. It kind of fine tunes it, so to speak. So here's the challenge. If you look at traditional sales methods, for example, traditional marketing methods, that stuff goes back to like when they were selling snake oil on the trail wagons, right? And you'd have the hyped up pitch and stuff like that. And so most sales and marketing efforts were always driven around like talking about features and benefits, and here's the specifications, and here's how much money it's going to save, all this logical brain stuff. So what happened about 15 years ago is scientists, you're probably familiar with something called an MRI, a magnetic resonance imaging machine. Mm-hmm. Well, instead of using brain scans for a busted head, advertisers started to put customers in these things to see what part of their brains were being activated when they were looking at advertisements, for example. And what they found was astonishing. What they found is almost everything they knew from market research. So when you hear about market research, you hear about, phone surveys, questionnaires, focus groups, things like that. What they found out is that almost everything they thought was wrong.
Whoops.
So this is what's fascinating. So we have like basically 3 parts to our brain, really simple to understand. We have the mammalian brain, which is our emotional side. We have the big honking thing. This is the new brain called the neocortex right here. Give it a little sock in the head. Now it's brand new. It's very good at analytics, but it's an absolute pig gas hog on energy. And it's only responsible for 5% of the decision making. What we know now is the subconscious brain, which is buried back here in something called the amygdala. We make 95% of our buying decisions subconsciously. Mm-hmm. What most people do is they spend 95% of their time talking to the 5% of the brain that doesn't buy. So if you're always focused on logic and here's why this makes sense, Fong, your brain is just shutting right down. Mm-hmm. So this was a massive, massive discovery. So what we know now is number one, you do need your facts and figures to sell somebody, because people need information to justify their decision, number one. Number two, they must be emotionally engaged with you. They've done studies where people, if they have a brain disorder, for example, or brain damage, and they can't feel emotions, they literally can't make decisions. So if you're trying to engage somebody to influence or persuade, and we all have to do that because we're in business, right? Mm-hmm. We're trying to make our case. If you don't win them over emotionally, they literally cannot make a decision. So these were other big revelations. So you have to get people emotionally engaged, and then you have to know what appeals to the primitive brain. The primitive brain is the one that, it's very simple, but it's the one that makes all the decisions. So this was really the big revelation with this stuff. So all neuromarketing does is it switches the focus to talk to the brain in a way that it understands. Mm-hmm. And the primitive brain, for example, cannot read text. So if all you have in your ad is text, you're forcing this part of the brain to work. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest drains on our energy is attention. So this thing requires attention. Even though this is only like, I don't know how much the brain weighs, I'm not sure. I guess it depends on if there's much up there. But here's the interesting thing. As small as this is as part of your total body mass, this thing right here uses up 30% of your caloric energy.
Wow.
It requires tons of oxygen and tons of glucose. And that's why we get so overwhelmed today in the information age, because this thing just can't keep up. Mm-hmm. This is an interesting fact. Like, here's my iPhone. Did you know that the average person today scrolls the length of the Empire State Building every day? And You're trying to get their attention, right? So, of course, this is why pictures, for example, visuals are much, much more important to the primitive brain. So there's a really quick 30,000 foot overview.